Tomorrow is when you are taking your constructed response portion of your final exam. This one's my favorite portion because there's a lot of extra credit attached to it. You just have to make sure that you attempt all the problems. Even if you don't know what you're doing, attempt them. You might be right. You could get some points. And I mean, really, you should know how to do them because we've been going over them. The reviews are just like the actual questions, just with different numbers. So if you're copying someone or if you're copying it from Schoology to get like 100% on that homework assignment, you know, whatever, but you really need to know how to do them so that you can get that extra credit tomorrow and all that stuff. So, yeah, all you need to know for it is what's on the reviews. You do have the option to create a 3x5 index card. You just have to turn it in when you're done testing. So like tomorrow, if you use one, you turn it in, and then next week you can have a different one made and turn that one into. So yeah. So to summarize, try all of them. And if you don't get your question answered for whatever reason, I mean, we have time now to go over them. Consider watching the videos. I recorded all my classes. When we went over it yesterday, and I also did that today too. It's all in Schoology. Same with the keys to the reviews are in Schoology too. So like in this week's folder, here's the keys. Don't peek at the Unit 3 one until we're done going over it. But you can see like what the answer should have been, if you were right or not. And then if you still have questions, like maybe you don't know how we got this as an answer or something, you can either email me or do something, I don't know. Figure it out before you come in tomorrow. So questions on that or anything like that. Also in this week's folder, toward the bottom is your review for the other part of your final that you take on final exam day. So the blue one is an assignment. I will mark it missing if you don't do it, but I'll give you time to do it Friday in class. I'll also give you a packet that has the same answers or same questions, and you could do your scrap work on your paper. The green one is extra credit. It has different numbers each time you take it, or at least it should be, because there's like 10 different types of questions that you could, but that could be given to you for every single question. So there's like tons of different versions out there, and you can really see if you're applying the knowledge the right way. So the questions on that. All right, so table 9, just so you know, that was supposed to take the whole hour, so you guys should be almost done. If not, wrap it up in 2 minutes. Everyone else, so what questions do you have from either review? Bailey? Okay. So choice 2, part B. Good ones to go over. We have 10 students in a graduate program were randomly selected. Their data for their GPAs at the beginning of the year versus the end of the year are shown. So this is a table of their data. So here's their actual data. And then also a scatter plot. So also their actual data. This stuff on the left are options. You can only have one trend line per a given set of data. And so what you're being asked is to choose from these 4 options, which one is most likely the line of best fit for the data provided. So where should you be drawing your lines of best fit? Toward the middle of the data, where it all seems to be like clustered around. So I would say, and it's hard to do it on here versus like on a paper, but say like something like that. So you, if you're doing it by hand, need like something really straight, maybe another piece of paper to find like your middle and then draw it really straight. I will say that earlier, my class and I estimated it. You know, we did it by hand and estimated it, and we actually ended up picking the wrong answer. Because it all just depends, like how straight you draw your line, what points you pick off of it. So the best way to probably get the most accurate answer is to do what? Use Desmos. So here's how you do that. You put your table in. So I did it earlier, but you have to put all your values in. If you don't put in all your values, like it literally changes every single time you add or remove a value. So you need to have them all there. I didn't waste time putting it in front of you, but here they are. Here's my scatter plot. And then to make a trend line, you would go in a different cell. What do straight lines always have the formula of? So when you type it in, it's really similar. It's going to be y1, except for it has to be squiggly, x1 plus b, like that. All right, and by the way, to insert the table, you hit plus and then table. So you do that, you put all your data points, you put a trend line by writing it like this, so I would probably put that on my note card. And it's x1, y1, so that it attaches to the table that you inserted. So notice it drew it toward the middle, where all the data is clustered around. The computer always does it right versus us. Then it also estimates your M and your B, your slope and your y-intercept. So looking at what the computer created, which option is best on your paper? B, it should be. All right, so then when you go back to your paper, it is C, and you do also have to explain. If your explanation is, I put it in Desmos, you're not getting points for that. All right, your explanation should be something to the effect of option C is best because, let's see, the line of best fit has a slope of, and I forget what it said on here, but you would put it from whatever the computer says. So 0.03125. And a y-intercept of, what is it? What was it? 3.67437. Which is closest to, or closer to option 2. Something to that effect. So where you have to look at the slope, look at the y-intercept, decide which one is the closest, and then pick that one. Questions on that? We'll add you to the line. Who's at the end of the line? Is it Zen? So then you're after Zen. Whoever's after Elise, go. You're after Elise? Yeah, she just came back. All right. So yeah, there's that. Something to that effect. So it might not be exactly that answer, but it would be the one that's closest. What other questions do we have on either portion? Isabella, are you done? Okay, so what are you doing? Well, then ask for one, don't just sit there. Bailey, did you have another one? Okay. So still the same choice, but now part A. So which of these scatter plots shows data that would best be described with a linear function? So which one, class? Okay, why this one? It's the most straight, so you could say option 2 because it is the most straight. And what else could you add to that? I'd probably put something Elson?
Oh, most three line of fit,
Okay, well, all lines of fit should
or
be
line of
straight.
fit, line of best fit.
Okay, all of those should be straight. So. Cadence. Okay, so since the dots are all close together. And we have to draw our line of best fits through the middle of our data, where all the data is clustered around it, then you could say that. The line of fit. Is closer. To the actual data. Alright, meaning like the scatter plot points. If you draw a line of fit through here, so like towards the middle. Alright, it's around it, but it's not all very close. If I draw it in here toward the middle, they're all pretty much on the line. If I draw it here toward the middle, there's still a lot that are far away. So that is why, that's a good explanation of why the middle one is the best option. So good on that one? So use complete sentences, put enough detail. Haley,
Can you do, the unit thing? The second question, or like the second part of that?
yes. So. Unit 6, can someone remind me what that was about? Quadratic function. Specifically, like, multiplying to make it standard form and that stuff. So. The second choice on unit 6, it says use a diagram to show that 5x plus 2 in parentheses times x plus 3 is equivalent to 5x squared plus 17x plus 6. So you don't really need to have a diagram, but you do need to prove it. Okay, so you just need to show that they're equivalent. What's the way that you could do that? You could FOIL the factored form and see if it gives you the standard form. You could also factor the standard form and see if it gives you what it says. I do think FOILing is easier. And on this one, is it asking you if it's equivalent or is it saying to prove that it's equivalent? So I bet you someone is going to say, actually, they're not equivalent. Don't say that. We're just asking you to prove that they are. So FOIL it is one of those ways that you could do that. 5x plus 2 times x plus 3. What does FOIL stand for? So then multiply the first terms. What's 5x times x? 5x. And then the outer terms, 5x times 3. What's that? The inner terms, 2 times x. What's that? And the last terms, 2 times 3 is, and then doesn't quite look like this yet. Usually you have to combine like terms after FOILing. What are my like terms? And when I add them, I get, and then bring down the other stuff that doesn't have a like term. And since it's the same, it's equivalent, right? If you can convert it one way or another to the other form, then they are equivalent. So to show that, you could show this work and that would be enough. We could also explain it a different way, but I think that might be easiest. Questions on that part? Okay, so then this part, number 2 on it, it says, is x minus 3 in parentheses squared equivalent to 2x squared plus 6x plus 6? So this one is asking you if it is or not. So you have to figure it out. What's one way that you can do that? Okay. So if I try to FOIL this over here, I don't see a first, outer, inner, last. So what do I have to do first? Okay, which means write it as what? Like, tell me. Because what do exponents tell us to do? Times whatever it's attached to by itself however many times the exponent says. So then, yeah, I have to expand it first, and then I can FOIL. So multiply your first term with x times x. And I can already see that these are not going to be equivalent, it's not from x squared, but keep it going. So outer terms, x times -3. Inner terms, -3 times x. And then last term, we have -3 times -3. Combined like terms, usually they're in the middle when you FOIL, like that. So are they equivalent? So make sure you either say yes or no on your test, that's part of it. So you would say no, and for your reasoning, you could say because the equivalent expression for the x minus 3 squared would be whatever you calculate, so x squared minus 6x. And then of course you could have figured it out another way that makes it not equivalent. You just have to explain it whatever way you did. So questions on that? I do think that's easiest, but my opinion. So questions on that one. Questions on others? So. Glad you survived. I don't think we'll get to you, but everyone else stop asking me about the rest of it. So what other ones do we have a question on? Bailey? Unit 3, choice 1. Unit 3, choice 1. Part B. So honestly, to really do that, we kind of have to go through the first part. So first you have an outdoor club conducted a survey of its members. The members were asked to state their preference between skiing and snowboarding. Each member had to pick one. So of the 60 males, so where does the 60 go? Which total? Okay. And then 45 stated they preferred to snowboard. So where do I put the 45? Okay, there's multiple. Okay. So then 22 of the 60 females preferred to ski. Where do I put the 22? Okay, there. And then 60, where do I put that? So over here. It doesn't tell me anything else, right? It doesn't. How do I fill in the rest of it? What can I fill in from what they told me? What can I start with? Okay, the males that prefer skiing, how many of them were there? Because 60 minus 45 gives me 15. What else could I fill in? And how many was that? Because again, 60, if the 60 is my total and 22 of them prefer this, then 38 of them must prefer this. And then what else can I fill in now? The grand total is what? That's how many people were surveyed. And then you could do your column totals now. So what will be here? And then here. And it should make sense. Like B should add up to this, B should add up to that, and all that stuff. So, okay, great, you have that. Then when it asks you to make a relative frequency table, really anytime you hear the word relative frequency, what should you be thinking of? Decimals or percents. So still talking about the data that's from here, but it wants it as a decimal or percent. That way you could see the proportion, so like the ratio of like all the people that were surveyed versus how many of them said like a certain thing. So what would I have to divide here to get the decimal? So to make my table, I'm dividing everything by the grand total. Usually we don't put that in the table, the fraction, but I think that might be good for your notes or your note card. But yeah, you're dividing by your grand total in all of these. So what, am I dividing here? So then you put that in your calculator, what do you get? All right, and you could leave it like that, it'll be up to you tomorrow, if you want to do a decimal or percent. What is my numerator for this one? Okay, good, as a decimal, it is 0.375. Okay. Down here, numerator is, that decimal is. Okay, and then over here, numerator is. And decimal is 0.3. Okay, great. So that's what you do. So really, your table probably doesn't have a fraction. Usually it just has the decimal or percent. That's all you really need. But that might be good for your notes to see what you got there. What else about that? And then they didn't make you do the parts for the totals, but if they did, you would just again do this divided by the grand total. This divided by the grand total. The grand total divided by the grand total, which should always be 1 or 100%, depending on what you're doing. So questions on that? Questions on others? Do you guys know how to do the bottom parts? Yes, ma'am. Okay, yeah, sure. So part C says among females. So not out of all the people that were surveyed, just among the females. So how many females were there? What proportion prefers snowboarding? So how many females prefer snowboarding? So that's how you set up your fraction. When you're doing these ones, it should never be greater than 1. So that kind of tells you how to set up your fraction. It should never be the numerator is bigger than the denominator. And then you just really have to read it closely. So like out of the females or out of the people that prefer something, that tells you what your denominator should be. If it just says out of the people surveyed, then it would be by 120. But it just depends. So then you put that in your calculator. What do you get from that? 38 divided by 60. Good. You could do that, or if you make it a percent, times it by 100%, both are acceptable. It doesn't specify what to round to, so I'll leave that up to you. Questions on that? Okay, so then what is the relative frequency that a male prefers to ski? So does it say like out of a certain type of people? So then what is my denominator going to be for that one? 120. So yeah, it doesn't say out of the males or out of the people that prefer to ski. It just says what's the relative frequency that a male prefers to. So that's how I interpreted it. At least I don't really have a key for this because we made it, but that's not important. So then males that prefer to ski was how many? So then I'm doing 15 divided by 120. And it's 0.125 or 12.5%. So regardless, on your final, just read it carefully. If it says out of these people or among these people or given that, something like that, then it wants the denominator to be not your grand. Questions on that? Okay, so then questions on, like, we might have time for one more. So any other questions? Well, we did, well, I mean, you were checking. I can answer your question. But we did all of unit 3. Do you guys have any questions from the one you did yesterday? Phil?
Here's the one from yesterday, stop me if you're like, up and down. Right? So exponential functions, quadratic functions, that's about it. Well, let me know, if you guys have questions, either let me know before you leave, email me, get your questions answered before you come in to take the final tomorrow. Because that's it, the day, for some of you, it's the difference between